It is fantastic to be here with SWE this weekend, and it is so empowering to see so many women engineers gathered together to support each other. The tools my engineering degree gave me is the biggest shaper of my career. Engineering gave me technical competence, and engineering opened my mind to a career in the energy field, a career that I love. But probably the biggest tool that engineering gave me is it taught me how to think about solving seemingly unsolvable problems by starting with what you know. That's how you make a way out of no way. And engineering also taught me that one of the simplest solutions, or one of the best solutions, is usually the simplest. Rack your brain though you might, simplest equals best. So if we're the best way to live a life without limits, as this conference is seeking to accomplish, I think, is to use the tools that we have. A lever is a tool that is important for a life and a career well navigated. So I'd like to spend some time talking about levers. Levers are one of the very first things that we learn in engineering and in physics. It is a so-called simple machine. At its heart, it's about creating advantage. Now, there are some people that think that a lever originated around 300 BC, Archimedes, but it goes way back. It goes much further back than that, about 1,000 years. At the dawn of agriculture, women invented the lever to support harvesting crops, digging sticks to support harvesting crops. And later, women would advance the loom, which is a lever, in early textiles. It would be a mistake to underestimate the power of a lever just because it's a simple machine. When David overtook Goliath in the story of David and Goliath, he did it with the combination of two simple machines, a lever and a pulley. That's the power of a lever. And when David prevailed over Goliath, he was using an existing technology in a new and different way. That's the power of engineering. And by the way, women invented the pulley too. I think that it is important to lever the stories of our heroes to shape the future that you're going to build. So the first story I want to talk about is a story about levering what others may see as a disadvantage and lever it to your advantage. And it is the story of a woman that people call the First Lady of Engineering. Her name was Ivon Clark. Ivon Clark was born in 1929, Houston, Texas. And she was sparked into engineering because of an opportunity that she had to fly a plane as a teenager. And one of the things that I love about Ivon Clark's story is that is the exact same inspiration for my 22-year-old niece, who is a SWE member, joining the engineering field. But Ivon's career involves a number of firsts. She was the first woman to graduate with a mechanical engineering degree from Howard University. She was the first Black woman to graduate with a master's or earn a master's degree in engineering from Vanderbilt. She worked for NASA on the Saturn V rockets that took us to the moon. She worked at Ford and Westinghouse, and she was the first female Black engineer at RCA, the Radio Corporation of America. She was the first female engineering professor at Tennessee State University, and she was the first Black member of SWE. So I don't think there's any question why she's called the First Lady of Engineering, right? But you have to put yourself in the era, the 1950s and the years that followed. There were a lot of people that didn't think that Ivon Clark could or should be an engineer because she was a woman, because she was Black. But Ivon never let that get to her. She would remind herself that there is nothing wrong with her, that it was the people discriminating against her. They're the ones that had the baggage. And she, in her words and her children's words, Ivon Clark wasn't going to carry anybody else's baggage. So there is a very good story about Ivon Clark levering her mind to overcome other people's baggage. And it actually happened at a SWE conference. The year is 1957, And SWE is holding their annual conference in Houston, Texas, Ivon's hometown. And she goes down to the conference, and when she gets there, the hotel owner, he says, "You can't come in." Ivon says, "Why not?" He says, "Because you're Black." And Ivon says, "But I have my papers. I have my papers that have a reservation for this hotel." And the hotel owner says, "I don't care. You can't come in." Well, the SWE leadership, they found out about this, and they stood by Ivon's side. God bless the sisterhood and the solidarity of the women of SWE. Exactly. And they went to the hotel owner and they said, "If you deny Ivon Clark access to our conference, then we're moving this conference. And we'll make sure every paper in America knows exactly why it is that we moved out of this conference." So the hotel owner, he relented. And he allows Ivon Clark to attend the conference, but she is forbidden from walking around the hotel without being chaperoned. And his thinking was, by her needing to be chaperoned, it would make her small. But this is where the genius of Ivon Clark comes in. So Ivon says to herself, she says, if people in this hotel are so curious about my presence, then I'm gonna walk every part of this hotel. So she and her SWE colleagues make quite the event of it. They walked in every part of that hotel. They went to the gift shop, and they went to the restaurant, and they went to the lobby, and then the restroom, and then back to the gift shop, and back to the restaurant. They had a grand time. But major point here is that Ivon Clark made it very clear to the people in that hotel that I am here. I am here. So the fulcrum was the racism of the hotel owner, and the lever was Ivon Clark's positive mindset, to which she said, "I do exist, and I will be seen," right? And what I love about this particular story about Ivon is it was done so graciously. Sometimes it's not about being hard like fire at the mountain to get on the other side. Sometimes it's about being soft like water to get on the other side of the mountain. So SWE did not return to Houston for many, many, many years. They returned in 1997 in Houston, Texas. And this time, Ivon joined them, and the city of Houston gave her a plaque, a key, and an apology for how it is that she was treated in 1957. Levering yourself is so important that I want to give you a modern day example. Is anybody here a fan of Taylor Swift? I hope so, I thought so, I think I knew all too well. Well, Taylor had her art, her music taken from her unjustly. And she came up with a very creative way to take her music back and rewrite her own story and write her own narrative. And she did it against enormous headwinds, enormous headwinds. The music industry is very, very male-dominated, and so much so that the founder of Rolling Stone magazine and one of their lead editors very recently was quoted in an interview about the history of rock and roll, and he said on the record he couldn't think of a single solitary female philosopher of rock and roll. Ridiculous, right? The titans of the music industry, they thought that they would make Taylor small. They had no idea that she would reemerge into the larger-than-life sensation that she was. Taylor's will is the lever against the fulcrum of adversity. And she shot that into a plane of pop culture that I'm not sure will ever be matched ever again, right? And you know the thing that I love the most about Taylor Swift is I love that it is the women with their money going to her shows, her music, her concerts, and it's really wonderful. So always remember, lever yourself up. Remember the story of Ivon, remember the story of Taylor, and lever yourself, right? As important as it is to lever yourself, You will find that the most rewarding experiences in your career are going to be when you have an opportunity to bring people together and lever everybody up. That is the path to positive, lasting change. And the way that you do that is you bring people together on what it is that they have in common so that they can overcome what it is that their differences are. And a very good example of this is the story of Frances Perkins. Frances Perkins was the first cabinet secretary in the United States of America. She was the Secretary of Labor for 12 years under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That is the longest that anybody has ever served as a cabinet secretary. And she had a remarkable career in her period. She created the Civil Conservation Corps that planted 2 billion trees and created 800 parks. She created Social Security. She created the federal minimum wage. She did away with child labor. She put in place the first of their kind work safety requirements for factory workers, and she put in place the first maximum hour work week that paved the way for the weekend. For all of these accomplishments of hers, she is called the architect of the New Deal. And the issues that she worked on at the time, they were highly, highly controversial. They're controversial today. Let me gently suggest that they shouldn't be. So then the question is, how did she do it? How did she do that? In one sentence, she had a knack for bringing people together. And this is something that women have such a skill, such a capability, the ability of women to read a room, read feelings, and see what it is that people have in common despite their disparities, despite disparate groups, right? And as women engineers, what you have these two amazing skills. You have technical knowledge and you have empathetic knowledge. If you put those two together, just like David with the pulley and the lever, you will go far. So what Frances Perkins did is she leaned into her human skills. She nurtured friendships. She held meetings. She had tours. She did tours with people that have very, very different points of view, because she knew that talk is helpful, but seeing is believing, and seeing together, that's powerful. She would bring legislators with very different points of view to actually see the conditions in the workplaces. She knew that factory owners, they don't like work stoppages. And legislators, they need successes to be able to point to. And she put those together to get real change for factory workers, which were the people that she really cared about and wanted to be able to make change for. She was a master at threading the needle between labor unions and management. And she did that by being very patient and seeing what it is that they have in common that was much more than what it is that divided them. She used the gravity of common interest, the gravity of what they shared to weigh against the gravity of their difference to make change. You know, both of my parents are Persian, and there's a very famous Persian poet, Rumi, who has a line that says that, remember that it is the rain that makes the flower grow, not the thunder. Frances Perkins was the rain, right? The Department of Labor building in Washington, D.C. is named after Frances Perkins, and I see it differently now since I know her story. So we've talked about levering yourself. We've talked about bringing people together to lever everybody based on their common interests. I want to talk about a third lever. So the best advice that I've ever gotten in my life was from my dad. And my dad was a professor of mechanical engineering for 40 years at Louisiana State University. He chaired the department there for several years. And the hallmark of my dad's career at Louisiana State University was how much he invested and cared about teaching and teaching to the students. So he was one of the original creators of the 2-semester senior design capstone course that is now prevalent throughout engineering programs today. But my dad, he was the OG. And then, thank you. And the advice he gave was actually not to me, but to my nephew, Adam. And he told my nephew that, Adam, you're the richest you're ever gonna be. And I found this advice so confusing and so befuddling. Adam was 18 years old, and he's about to start college. I don't think he has a bank account. If he does, there is nothing in it. But then my dad went on to say, you are the richest you will ever be because you have the energy of youth. Invest that energy. Don't waste it. It will pay dividends to you in the years when you don't have the richness of youth and everything that comes so easy physically and mentally when you are young. And that advice resonates with me so much. And it resonates with me because I remember those days. I remember reading until I felt like my eyes were gonna bleed. And I remember writing and rewriting my notes until my hands had a tremor. And I know that so many of you have studied and worked just that hard. I remember making bets on myself that no betting man would have taken. And I was very well supported at that time, especially by my brother, who, when I did feel like I was at the end of my rope, he was the one that would tie a knot, and I mean a big knot, and he'd say, baby sister, hold on to this, you're gonna be okay. You have those people in your life, bring them close and hold them closer than close. My team would tell you that I am fearless. Far from it. I don't think anybody, first generation, can be fearless, but they can be brave. So for years, when I had one of those big presentations, or one of those big meetings, you know, the kinds where people are in the room that can decide your career, that they're in that room, I would call my mom. And I would tell my mom, Mom, can you pray? Because there's this partner is important, or this leader is powerful. And she would listen to the hyperbole in my head about what would happen for my career if things didn't go well, right? And of course, my mom agreed to pray. And my mom, she has a direct line with the man upstairs. I promise. But after so many years and so many calls, one day my mom said to me, Maryam, I will pray for you. But you need to remember that it is a sin to be afraid of anybody but God. Let that be your guide. And with those two sentences, my mom gave me the confidence and the humility to say what I needed to say when I needed to say it. And those two sentences have been powerful for me ever since. And you have to find your own version of that advice to help you overcome the natural fear that comes from investing in yourself. My team would also tell you that I am indefatigable. And I will say that I am a big supporter of the Ted Lasso adage that the harder you work, the luckier you will be, for sure. But I know this, I can't do what I used to be able to do. You are the wealthiest you will ever be because of the energy you have. Invest that energy. It is a priceless resource. Invest it in your learning, invest it in your relationships, and invest it in challenging yourself to do new and different things, right? Which brings me to my fourth lever, energy, a subject that I hold near and dear to my heart. So there is quite the debate around the world about energy resources and how best to use them. And this is something that I have studied, I have grappled with, and this I would tell you. Solar, wind, geothermal, minerals, oil, natural gas, we never actually run out of any of them. Yes, some of them are more economic, some of them are less economic over time because of supply and demand, but we never actually run out. The only truly limited resource is time. Energy is what transitioned us from an agrarian economy to an industrial economy. Energy is what it is that lights the night and it lengthens lives. And energy is what allows us to make the most of the one truly limited resource, time, right? And I think in that way, energy allows people to pursue their hopes and dreams and allows people to advance their natural talents. And you all in this room, as engineers and as technical people, you understand this in a different way. Energy sets people free. Right now, in Africa, there are young women that spend half their days hauling food and water because they are energy infrastructure poor. They are depending on you. They are depending on you to give them the experience of liberation that we so often take for granted here in America. And this is why the energy industry has been so fulfilling for me for so many years. And I hope some of you will consider joining the energy industry, because energy is the lever that lets us maximize the one truly limited resource. Energy will take you to any state in the Union. Energy will take you to any nation on the globe. Energy will take you everywhere. And it brought me to California as a leader of the largest gas utility in the Western Hemisphere. And when I got here, I will say that I had a problem, a really big problem. And that brings me to my fifth and final lever, which is levering hope. So the problem that I had is a significant number of very important people felt that my company, SoCalGas, was an impediment to the state's climate change goals. The thinking was that a company that has served California for 150 years, that is serving 21 million consumers today, that's 1 in 15 Americans, that it had nothing to contribute and that it should be gone. Hydrogen is the one gas that when it combusts, it emits absolutely no carbon. So while there are challenges to folding a new fuel into our energy system, the potential benefits are so significant. So one of the challenges that we faced was in changing minds around hydrogen was a lot of the audiences that we were engaged with, they were very well versed in public policy, but they didn't have the engineering and technical knowledge. And please don't misunderstand what it is that I am saying. I love public policy. I love public policy people. I worked in Washington, D.C. at the highest levels of public policy, and it was one of the most rewarding parts of my career. But we were going to need to show them what it was that energy could do. We were going to need to make it real. So we built a home, because everyone can relate to a place that they call home. You can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it. You can understand it with your head and your heart, right? So when you go into the home, you get a good feeling, right? It's warm and it's inviting, and it is comfortable. That right there is a view of the front deck of the home. And that is an image of an interactive smart table that we have in the house for educating and engaging with our visitors on the opportunity with hydrogen. The home is electrified with solar electricity from solar panels from the microgrid during the day when the sun is shining bright. But at night, or on very cloudy days, that house is electrified from electricity from a hydrogen fuel cell. There's an electrolyzer that makes hydrogen with H2O, and there is also we also blend the hydrogen with natural gas to be able to energize the appliances in the home. A microgrid like the one that we built up there could energize anywhere from 20 to 100 homes, depending how it is that you use, and it is a proxy for hydrogen being able to provide energy that is safe, reliable, and no carbon clean. And it can energize shopping centers, data centers, manufacturing centers, neighborhoods, power plants, transportation, trucks, trains, planes. The technology that we used here, it exists, it is proven, and it's getting better all the time, and we're seeing costs come down. The impediment to hydrogen being more present in our energy economy really is about societal will. And how is it that you affect societal will? Well, societal will is started in policy circles. And in policy circles, seeing is believing. And maybe you see a little bit of the theme of the Frances Perkins story. So SoCal Gas could have talked about hydrogen until we were blue. But the conversation changed from a one-way conversation to a two-way conversation once we had the backdrop of the hydrogen home and the hydrogen microgrid. And the adage that if you build it, they will come is definitely coming to pass. We've had stakeholders come from around the globe, from Turkey to Japan, to Denmark. We have had academics come, we've had students come, we've had investors come, we've had policymakers come from Washington, D.C., from all over the United States. And the reason they're coming is they want to have a sight line into the future. They want to know what it looks like, and we built it for them. This is why I call it leveraging hope. So if this vision excites you, what I would want to do is encourage you to come to California. California is a great place for women engineers. SoCal Gas is a great place for women engineers. Exactly. And 3 of the 4 major energy utilities in this state have women leading their companies. Our air agency is a woman, Leanne Randolph. The head of our Public Utilities Commission is a woman, and I'd be willing to bet that our next governor of this state is going to be a woman, right? So I would invite you to consider bringing your levers here to California. As you move forward, it is important to remember that 2 people pulling a lever is more powerful than 1. Ivon Clark was very fortunate because she had an incredible life partner, her husband, Bill Clark. And when Bill and Ivon were dating, Bill's father was none too happy that that the woman that Bill was dating had such strong career interests. But Bill stood by Ivon's choices. They were a great team. After they got married, they had 2 children, and they divided up the housework and the childcare. And Bill did the cooking, Ivon did the bills, and they were married for 39 years. And their relationship shows that 2 is stronger than 1. And the reason that that's important is that nothing big ever gets accomplished by just 1 person. Major undertakings always require a symphony of committed, hard-working people working together, right? So as you work with others, use your levers because they are versatile. A lever, it can lift. Use your minds to lift other women. And a lever, it can pry. Use your minds to pry open doors of opportunity. And levers can smash. Use your minds to smash any glass ceiling that someone tries to put over your head, because you should never, ever carry someone else's baggage, ever. I feel in this room, at this moment, is one of the most powerful concentrations of potential energy. You are going to build the future. You're going to build the computer systems, you're going to build the energy systems, and you're going to build the biomedical devices, and you're going to make the watches, and you're going to make the vehicles that travel around the globe and take us to the stars and back again, right? Untiring efforts of women who came before have given you a place to stand. And you're going to move the world because you, the women in this room, you are the lever. And I can't wait to see the better world it is that you build. I want to thank the leaders of SWE for what it is that they have done with this conference, this fabulous collection of women focused on supporting each other. I want to thank the LA Convention Center for hosting all of us here. And I hope all of you have enjoyed time in this wonderful city, City of Angels. And thank you so much for having me.